Hi everyone, welcome to this manufacturer webinar about the new application portal for the DLC. My name is Andrea Shapiro. I am the Marketing and Communications Associate with the DLC, and joining me on the webinar are Tyler Regino and Nicholas Pace from DNR International. A quick note before we begin, this webinar will be recorded and posted on our website at the end of the broadcast. And with that, let's get started. So a quick overview of why we launched a new application portal before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to use the system. We have four main reasons. Firstly, we want to improve application review timelines for you as manufacturers so that you can get your products qualified on the QPL in a timely manner. So this system is set up to, as we get the kinks worked out, to improve the time between submitting a product and seeing that product on the QPL. Secondly, we want to provide more information for you about the status of your application as you're going through the review process. Similarly, we also want to provide more information about your application history so that you can go into your dashboard and see detailed information about what has been submitted in the past. And finally, as we've launched this new system, all of your DLC website functions are now integrated under one login. So as you log in through the new website, you'll be able to submit applications and access your QPL downloads and save searches in the same location. I also am going to give a quick overview of the key features of the application portal that have changed. Firstly, we have a new validated document checklist when you're submitting an application, and the purpose for this is to hopefully speed up application review timelines by clarifying which documents you as the manufacturer need to submit to have your application move into the comprehensive review phase. We also have a new messaging system, so now all messages that you're exchanging with your reviewer when you have an application process will live within the application portal so that you can go back and review communication about a specific application and have all of that info in one place. And finally, as I mentioned before, the detailed application status history hopefully will provide more transparency into the DLC process of reviewing applications and help you have a clear picture of what has been submitted in the past. So before we jump into the agenda, I just want to make a quick note about questions. We won't be opening this up live for questions as we do have a lot of attendees, but as we go through the webinar, if you have a question, please ask it through the question pane, and we will be addressing those questions during the webinar and after the presentations have finished. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tyler Regino from DNR.
Thanks, Andrea. This is Tyler Regino. I am a DLC reviewer and was pretty heavily involved with the development of the new application portal. Let's go over the agenda for today. So we're transitioning to the new application portal. It launched on June 26th. Today we're going to go over accessing the portal and user accounts and how to sign in if you haven't done so yet, as well as do a full overview of the application portal, managing your account, looking at saved searches on the QPL, managing user accounts under different organizations, as well as go over the application process. So submitting an application, looking at messaging between you and a DLC reviewer, paying invoices, and looking at the status of your application through our new history tab. So let's go over the transition to the application portal. Like I said, on June 26th, we launched the new application portal on designlights.org. All applications that are new need to be submitted through this website. Any open applications that you had on our old portal that were created before June 26th will still be managed through the old site. So if you have any open applications right now that were open before launch, then you will still be managing and talking with your DLC reviewer to get those completed through the old application portal. So let's talk about how to access the new application portal. All user accounts are based on email address. So if you had a QPL user account for the designlights.org website, you'll use this account to access the new application portal. If you have not set up a QPL user account on designlights.org, your apps.designlights.org, the old application portal, that account will be transferred to the new site. So you can use the same email address from that old application portal that you had for that account, and passwords will need to be reset. So let's go over what that would look like. From the default page on designlights.org at the top right, the sign in. Here's the screen that you're going to see. So if you haven't created a user account on the new website yet, then you will do so by clicking Forgot Password, sign in. Once you do so, the email address that you used for the old application portal should be entered in that email address box, at which point you will click Send Me a Reset Email, which will prompt you to reset your password. If you never had a user account on the old application portal and are looking to create a new one, then you're going to look at the right side of this sign-in page, the Sign Up and Request Approval section. If you are looking to submit QPL product applications, then you're going to check the I will use my DLC account to submit QPL product applications checkbox. What that is going to do is open up those 4 boxes below that. The first of which is a organization dropdown. So what that dropdown is going to have is all of the currently created organization accounts that sit on the DLC site. If you're not sure if you have a organization already created on the DLC site for whatever organization you're looking to submit under, I would check this dropdown to make sure you aren't creating any duplicates if you create a new organization. If you're confident that this organization hasn't been created, then you're going to enter in information in those bottom 3 boxes there in that blue outline section. It's going to prompt you for a name, a phone number, and the organization's website. If you're submitting on behalf of multiple organizations, this is especially pertinent to any laboratory submitters, you're going to need a unique email address for each organization that you're looking to submit on behalf of. The organization administrator must approve the account, and we'll go in on some later slides on exactly how that works. Third-party submitters are not allowed to be the organization administrator, and a representative from the organization needs to create the organization and organization administrator account first before you can submit any applications for that organization. So here's what the default page is once you sign in one way or another with your user account. The dashboard is going to have things like the latest news and events going on at the DLC. To submit applications, you want to click that Applications tab, that second choice. Quick note there is any applications that were submitted on the old site on apps.designlights.org will eventually be transferred to the new portal, but are currently unavailable. So like I said, that dashboard is kind of the default home page when you sign in. To look at applications, to edit your account info, review QPL searches that you've done in the past and saved. You're going to be clicking each of these tabs that appear right here. So applications, manage users, account info, so on. So let's take a look at some of those tabs. First one is account info. So you can see here you can update your contact information, change your password, look at your email address that's associated with that user account, add new phone numbers that are associated with that user account. And if you need to make any changes or add anything, you want to click the green button associated with that section. So that was the account info tab. Let's take a look at saved searches next. So to look at saved searches, say you don't want to take down a product ID that you're looking for and just want to save it. There's a prompt to do so on the QPL search page. And when you click that, it will be saved here on this tab. So you have the option to resume that QPL search, which will bring you to the actual search QPL page and automatically query whatever sort of keywords you entered when you saved that QPL search. You'll also have the option to download the results of that query straight from here. So look, I was saying earlier, organization administrators need to approve any user accounts that are created under that organization. So here's where the administrator will do so. Organization administrators are responsible for rejecting or approving all user accounts that are created under that organization. So at the bottom there, you can see a section for currently approved users, and then a section below that for pending users. Any new requests that come in will show up under pending users. And on the rightmost of that item there, you can see either accept or reject. The administrator will get a notification if a new user account is requested. The administrator will have the option to remove any active users under that organization with the trash icon on the right-hand side, as well as manage, like I said, accept or reject any pending users. So let's jump into the actual application process. First off, submitting the application. So when you click the Applications tab right next to the Dashboard tab when you sign in, this is going to have a summary of all of the applications that have been submitted by any users under your organization that you signed into. To take a look at any specific application, you can click the eye icon on the left-hand side of each of those line items. Or you could search by application name or application code in that search bar right there. On that same page, on the right middle section of that page, you have the option to create an application. Clicking that button will prompt a new page, which you can see on the right-hand side, and we'll jump into that in a little bit. Right now, actually. So clicking Create New Application will prompt this window here. There's a few things going on with each of these boxes, so each of them have a pretty significant impact on what your submission is going to look like and what things you're going to be prompted to enter in when you're submitting. This first box, application name, so what we recommend is adding the general series number of the product group that you're looking to submit under. If you have any working relationships with current DLC reviewers that you would like for them to get assigned this application, I would do so in the application name. So something as simple as for Tyler Regino, our assignment team will know and take it from there and basically assign it to that reviewer. The next box there, the description box, any additional supplemental details that you would like to provide the DLC reviewer, you can add in there. It's an optional box. If you have nothing to add, I would just copy the application name into the description. Next is the application type. This is the drop-down menu. It's going to give you the option to submit under single product, family grouping, private label, or update application types. This is very important. So if you choose the wrong application type, you're going to be prompted to basically submit different documents than you would for, say, another application type. So this is very important that you select the right application type for your group of products. If you are unsure which application type to choose, I would go to the Submit a Product page on the DLC website. That'll give you a good breakdown of what's recommended for each application type, what sorts of documents are required before submitting, things like that. That bottom section, the application contact section, this will be auto-filled as default with whatever name, email, and phone has been entered for your user account. If you would like to change the email that notifications go to when, say, an application message is entered and submitted by a DLC reviewer, you can change that email here. So when you're happy with everything you've chosen on this page, you will click Create to create the application. Be aware that creating the application is different than submitting the application. So if you only create it and don't submit it, it will not be counted as submitted, and you're going to need to upload documentation and stuff like that before you can submit. So clicking Create will bring you to the application home. Bunch of different things going on here, so we'll run through each of these sections. You'll see as default the status is application is incomplete. It's prompting you to upload your documents. So in a second we'll show you how to do so. When you submit an application, a random 7-digit alphanumeric code will be generated for that application. Both you and or the DLC reviewer can use this as a reference ID whenever trying to quickly drill down to find pertinent details about that application. As you can see, there's a bunch of different tabs on the left-hand side, all with different functions. We'll run into those in later slides. Like I said before, as default, when you submit, the status of the application is incomplete, prompting you to review missing documentation. There is a kind of mini recent message section in the middle there. It'll give you any recent messages, but not all of the messages that have been either sent by you or sent by the DLC reviewer. You have the option to either click the messaging tab on the left-hand side with that 0 next to it, or click View All Messages on the right-hand side to look at all messages for that application. Another thing we have here is the application history, same sort of thing, so it's going to give you the most recent application history. If you want to look at the complete history, you can either click the tab on the left-hand side or click View Complete History on the right-hand side. If you want to navigate back to the application list that you saw where each user that submitted an application, it gets summarized like we saw a few slides ago, on the top right side you can see the Applications button right there. It'll bring you right back. So let's take a look at Document Submittal. To navigate to the Documents tab, click it on the left-hand side. Like I said earlier, the application type that you choose when creating the application will dictate what questions are asked of you for required documentation, optional documentation when you are submitting. So each document is itemized. You're going to be asked a question for each document that you need to upload. sections of this page are grouped into required and optional sections. So the required documentation section is the first thing you're going to see. It will ask you for example, the application form, spec sheets, things like that. The reason we have optional sections is not every application submitted asks for certain files. For example, if you have one or more premium products in your application, you will need to submit a driver spec sheet for those products, but wouldn't need to do so if all of the application, or excuse me, all of the products in your application were standard, which is why that question would be optional. Also, there are some documents that are specific to certain primary use designations. For example, CEPLEDs, if you've got any 4-pin-based products, you're going to need to submit compatibility testing, which is why that document would be optional. So the portal isn't going to let you submit your application unless you've uploaded all required documentation. If you try to do so without submitting all required documentation, the system will keep you from submitting and it will give you an incomplete message at the top. If you've submitted some but not all of required documentation, it will give you something to the effect of 7 out of 10 documents have been submitted, please review. To upload a document, you're going to click Choose File. Once you've chosen your document, you need to click Upload. If the upload was successful, a green check will appear on the left-hand side. So as default, all required documents will have an X on that left-hand side. Once you've successfully uploaded a document, that X will turn into a green check. You'll see on the right side here, you'll have the option to remove a document. Say you uploaded a document by mistake and want to delete it. That red trash icon will do just that. If you would like to view and or download the document, that I icon right next to the trash icon will let you do that. So to review, the required document icon is an X. The optional document icon will be that page icon. Once you upload a document to either of those, that will turn into a green check. And like I said, you have the option to delete a document or view or download it. Some document questions will give you the ability to add multiple files. Say a private label with different spec sheets for each product would require you to upload, obviously, multiple spec sheets to that question. So any questions where this is appropriate, you'll have the option to add files. If you have a lot of files to add to one question, you do have the ability to zip those files up into what is effectively one document and choose that file and upload it. So like I said earlier, the first question that's going to be asked of you is going to be submitting an application form. Please make sure you're using the most up-to-date application form. If you aren't, you will be prompted with an error message that reads invalid application format. If you ever run into that, take a look at the Submit a Product pages. At the bottom of each of those, they're going to have the latest template for each of the application forms. Quick note that products will be imported from the scaled performance table in the application form. This is something that's coming soon. The functionality currently doesn't sit on the system for single and family applications, but we're currently developing that functionality. We'll speak on this a little bit later to provide a little bit more context on that. So once you've submitted all required documentation, you will be able to submit the application. please make sure that if you don't, please know that if you don't submit all required documentation, the application is not going to be submitted. So you could upload everything and then navigate away from this page without submitting, and the application won't be considered submitted. DLC reviewer won't be assigned, and your application will basically stay stagnant. So please make sure to click Submit Application. It'll appear at both the top right and bottom right of every document question page. Once you do so, the status of your application will change to open, and it will appear the message right there at the top: the application has been submitted. You'll receive a submission email, and that application will be submitted. So let's take a look at the Products tab of our application page. So this is basically a staging area for products. Like I was saying earlier, the functionality that's coming soon for single and family application types is that these products will appear as soon as you submit. Like I said, it's coming soon. It is currently working for private label applications. So as soon as you submit a private label application, products will automatically appear in this Products tab. You have the ability to take a look at each of these products. If you click the eye icon, you'll be able to look at the current setting for that product. You'll be able to look at rated data. Once the DLC reviewer has entered and tested data during a comprehensive review, or after their comprehensive review, tested data will appear in this Products tab. So if you were to click one of those eye icons, here's what you would see. And once you click into those, you'll have the ability to look at a bunch of different sections on the left-hand side: rated values, performance values, categorization, etc. So let's take a look at the messaging system. All application-specific communications that you would like to do either between your DLC reviewer, you will need to do so through this Application tab. DLC reviewers will require you to resend any communications that you sent outside of this messaging, say through email, to do so inside this Messaging tab. To create a new message, if you click in the Messaging tab, on the top right side there, you'll see the Actions dropdown. Click Add Application Message. This will prompt a new window. You'll have the option to change the category of the message, change the subject of the message, and enter in any sort of text that you would like in the body of the message. There's a text editor there with some basic tools for formatting and font. Once you're happy with your message, you can click Save at the bottom right, and that will send the message. That message will appear in either the Recent Messages or the All Messages section. They will appear the same if you created the message or if the DLC reviewer created the message. And every message created will start a new thread. So each of those line items you see at the bottom there are different separate threads that were created either by the reviewer or by you. As default, the status of an application message will be open. As soon as that issue has been determined to be resolved by the reviewer will mark that message thread as resolved. And that's what you can see on the right-hand side there. So if you are sent an application message by the DLC reviewer, you can reply within the same thread and click Submit. If a DLC reviewer has to send a message that's tied to a specific document, say they saw an application form with some incorrect categorizations or some fishy rated data, stuff like that, they will mark that document as invalid, as well as send a message in the messaging tab. So I would look at the message first, see whether they prompted you to replace a document, and if they marked anything as invalid, you will get a red badge on the left-hand side next to that Documents tab. If a document has been marked invalid and you go to the Documents tab, you can see that the icon on the left-hand side changes to a red exclamation mark. You will have to chew the file and replace whatever was marked invalid, and that's the same process as if you were uploading for the first time. Please make sure to resubmit the application. The DLC reviewer will rely on that notification. They'll be prompted to know that you've replaced the document and they need to review it. As soon as you've replaced that document, reply to a reviewer to make sure that they know that that document has been replaced. We've noticed a few issues with application messages. A few manufacturers have reached out saying that they aren't receiving email notifications. Our recommendation to try and filter out a lot of those issues is to make sure that these notifications aren't being caught in your spam filter. So I would check that spam filter first before you reach out and say that you're not getting any messages. Make sure to whitelistdesignlights.org if it turns out that your spam filter is catching your email notifications. Next, let's take a look at invoice payments. So when the initial review is determined as complete by the DLC reviewer, they will submit their invoice. You will get an email notification of this invoice submission, and there will be a link that links you to the Invoice tab. So you'll have the option to print a receipt of this invoice at the top right in that Actions dropdown. And you'll see basically a list of line items that total up to your total invoice. So it'll explain that there was a LM79 review, there were some additional family members, things like that. You'll be prompted to enter in billing information, credit card information. Once you're happy with that, at the bottom right, click Pay to complete. Next, let's take a look at the status of your application. So we quickly saw towards the beginning of this presentation that there's a History tab. It's going to track every significant milestone in your application, things like submissions, invoices, primary review complete, and so on. So if you were to click either the History tab on the left-hand side or the View Complete History button on the right-hand side, it will bring you to this page. This will give you a complete history of all of these milestones and give you a date and time of each of these status changes. I briefly mentioned these notifications throughout the presentation. So you will be prompted with email notifications for things like application submission, when a DLC reviewer is assigned, when they mark a message as resolved, when the status of the application changes, when an invoice is sent, when you've successfully paid an invoice, and when the application has been completed by the reviewer. So let's review what we learned today. The application portal was launched on June 26th. Any new applications that you're looking to submit for DLC qualification need to be submitted through this portal. The Documents section, which is itemized, ensures complete applications. It will cut down on a lot of missing data issues. Our messaging system is used for all application-specific communication. And the History tab gives us a detailed list of different significant milestones in the review process. With that, we're going to stop for any questions. Please feel free to throw anything in the existing chat that hasn't already been answered. And if you would like to wait, you can contact Applications for any application-specific questions, or contact info@designlights.org for any questions about user accounts or any other general questions. So I'm seeing one question here: how far back does the history go? So total history from start to finish will be summarized in that History tab for any applications that were submitted under this new application portal. So as soon as you submit, that History tab starts working all the way to completion of that application. Any apps.designlights applications, the old application portal, that were submitted will eventually be transferred over to the new website. We got a few questions about submitting on behalf of multiple organizations. So you need to use a unique email address for every user account that you're submitting under. You have a few options there. You can either create a new user account under that organization with a unique email address that hasn't been used for any other user accounts, or you can obtain the credentials from any existing user accounts under that organization with a unique email address to submit on behalf of that organization. We've got a question here about the transfer of old applications, old completed applications from apps.designlights. Specifically, will they detail the products and invoice information once they're transferred over to the new website? So product information will not be transferred into that products tab. However, things like application history will be transferred over. So any significant status changes, dates of submittal, dates of completion will be transferred over into the new website's listing for that application. So we've got two separate questions here that need addressing. The first one was, like I mentioned briefly earlier in the presentation when we were talking about messaging, we have gotten a few reports from certain submitters that aren't receiving email notifications. We just wanted to let you know that if this is happening to you, we are monitoring the email notification system and are looking into causes for these issues. If it starts being a consistent issue, please email info@designlights.org. We have a few workarounds that we can communicate to your assigned DLC reviewer to make sure you're getting email notifications. Second one was a question about how long it will take for an organization account to be approved. We should be able to get back to you within 1 business day. All right, it looks like the majority of attendees are starting to drop off here. Know that this webinar was recorded and will be posted to the website shortly. If you have any other questions, please contact applications@designlights.org for any application-specific questions, or any general questions, please contact info@designlights.org. Thanks everybody for attending, and have a great day.